Thank you so much, Professor Vogt, for preparing this very big program for our cultural policies for the next 30 years. We are very happy that to this conference there is a publication planned, and all of the speeches will be available, and I hope Mr. Professor Vogt will also publish his transcript, and it will appear in September. So we would like to discuss a few theses with those guests you can see here, but before I will invite them to the front, maybe one technical information. Of course, we kind of imagined that we will have a microphone in the front and will be integrated more. So because of technical reasons, I would like to invite everyone to speak directly into the microphone then. So we won't have so much time, but that's what I would like to ask everyone to keep it short with a statement. We have the mayor of Zittau, Herr Zenker, Theresa, Franz, Sodann, Kirstin Zenker. We also have some chairs. Would you like to stand? Maybe that's okay to stand. So please come closer. Yes, we will. Yeah, we will like remove this tree for a short while, if I hope that's okay. So at first I would like to explain and present all our guests to you, introduce them. So I would like to start with Dr. Theresa. She is a cultural scientist, but not a former student of Professor Vogt. She studied in Leipzig and Krakow musicology, German studies, and communication media studies. She completed her doctorate with a thesis on the Sorbian folk dance and stories and discourses. She's not only a researcher at the Sorbian Institute in Bautzen, but also a cultural worker herself, managing projects in the field of cultural education, art and culture for the Leipzig Dance Theater. Welcome to you and thank you for coming to Görlitz. Next to her is Mrs. Kirstin Zenker. She is the managing director of the Saxony Socio-Cultural Association, and she's been closely involved with the Upper Silesia culture region for many years and is currently a cultural advisor for the socio-cultural sector. Mrs. Zenker has built up an important museum facility in the district of Bautzen, the Energiefabrik Knappenrode. She is a member of the Cultural Senate of the Free State of Saxony, and Professor Garstetzky also quoted this report of the Senate, and lately the Senate also engaged into the cultural discussion to empower culture and strengthen and sustainably promoting art and culture. Franz Sodann has been a member of the Saxon State Parliament for the parliamentary group Die Linke since 2014, and we are delighted that he has accepted our invitation to stand in for Dr. Claudia Meicher as Deputy Chair of the Committee for Sciences, Higher Education, Media, Culture and Tourism. Thank you so much, Mr. Sodann, that you came here from Leipzig to Görlitz. From 2015 to 2019, he was also a member of the Cultural Senate and the Cultural Policy spokesperson for his parliamentary group. He studied acting at the Ernst Busch Academy of Dramatic Arts in Berlin and was already engaged at the Goethe Theater in Bremen during his studies. This was followed by engagements at various theaters throughout Germany. Since 2017, he has returned to his hometown of Leipzig. Welcome to you, Mr. Sodann. So We also had the applause. Now we come to Mr. Thomas Zenker, and who is the mayor since 2015 of the city of Zittau and currently is in his second term. He comes from the town, the border of Triangle, and returned to his hometown in 2009 after studying social studies in Leipzig, Paris, and Berlin. And he has a broad portfolio of professional experiences, but decided in 2014 to get involved in local politics in the Voters Association Zittau Can Do More. He is also a member of the Cultural Convention of our cultural area. Welcome to you as well. We are happy to have you. So now, of course, we thought about before how much we want to talk, how much detail we would like to discuss. So maybe that's what I would like to ask. My first question to you, Mr. Zenker. We would like to stand behind you, so we have a not so far road to the microphone, as you wish. So, where's the professor? He left. So, a very important topic of the keynote speech of Mr. Vogt were the finances and its importance, and also the voluntary aspects of culture. Mr. Zenker, I would like to ask you to give a statement about this topic for your city of Zittau. Yeah, of course. Now you said I should give a short statement, which is really difficult because there's a lot to say. And of course, we heard from the head of the municipality, Landrat Meyer, that's a huge variety of tasks we have to deal with. And now I'm talking to you who are all engaged into culture and work in culture. And we for a long time now, we try to just stabilize the whole thing. And now Dr. Franke gave us a point, which is not the nicest point. It's about finances. And of course, Mr. Vogt also talked about finances, and he showed us some graphics for that. So it's getting worse. And also for the city of Zittau, we have 25,000 citizens. And we are also supported by the cultural convent. And we have huge challenges. The first one, we have a parliament. We have a parliament who work in a different variety of topics, and we try to explain to them that culture is very important, but there are also different tasks. And also we have the municipality of Görlitz, who now has to give 70% for social expenses. So the support we can get from the municipality of Görlitz is not really possible anymore because it's also too much. I also see our director of the museum in Zittau. So this is a museum of the city of Zittau, and he knows the problem very well because it's also an administrative problem. So of course it has enough financial funds to work, but maybe you've heard about this agreement between the communes, which was made in the beginning of the 90s. We don't know that in the next elections, if it will still exist, if we will have the status quo. So this, of course, is a worry we have. And of course, when I think about social culture areas, which is a special part of culture in our region, and we know that so this social culture is kind of exotic for some people, but is very important for us. And I want to congratulate Görlitz. It is the last institution in the cultural community. It's a social cultural institution, Rabrika it's called, which was opened in Görlitz. and it got into the pool. So congratulations for that. I can only agree with Mr. Vogt that we have to kind of handle our citizens and all the expectations, because maybe we are not able to finance all this. But of course we have to talk to the Free State of Saxony, because it's also a part of their work, because culture is the foundation of our society. And of course, cultural education we also have in the cultural community is one of the biggest and most important things for our future.
Yeah, Professor Vogt.
So Professor Vogt already talked about this, that the foundation of the cultural law is a part of the communal laws, so it works alongside. So of course we want to talk about regional importance. Professor Gastetsky also talked about this regional importance. And one question, Mrs. Zinke, what there's some pressure, finance pressure, and how can we endure this pressure? What can we keep? Yes, of course, that's kind of a mean question. I can tell you, I cannot foresee the future. So no, like I want to tell you that the regional meaning in all is very important in all these cultural areas. And I know this because I'm traveling a lot around all the 8 cultural areas, and I'm also part of the commissions there. Also in Dresden, for example. And of course, I know a lot about the problems of the cultural secretaries of these areas, and of course about finances. So today we looked at the statistics and talked about it for the fat years, that there was not much more money coming. And of course, I'm looking back at the work we did. Maybe we didn't see the signs of our times, and we were working a lot to finance the status quo, and we really do not have the statistics. Of course, that's a huge problem. We need them. We should start working on this, and it's also important to know that because of the financial situations in the cultural areas, all the responsible people really look closely at the rules, the guidelines they have, and they need to use those guidelines. So they cannot say who am I financing, but they have to say who am I not financing anymore in the future. So also we in this cultural area, we need to ask ourselves, what is the regional importance? What does this really mean? So when we ask this question to different people, we get a lot of different answers. So it's kind of hard to define something more strictly, because it's kind of not defined. So I think this is like a second level in the discussion, but I think it's very important that we should talk to everyone who is part of it before we do that, like for example politics, local politics. But we have to ask the question, what is important for the future in our cultural area? What is so important that we can and should finance it with this regional aspect for the future, and which we want to like sustain for the future. And of also like another aspect, that we have so much freedom in these cultural areas to create new models in the future, because this is so important in culture. that we can only finance what we already have. That's not the idea of culture. It's too much pressure. And also, I'm, of course, not a psychologist, but then we see it in front of us, but we cannot look behind. So I think it's kind of sad. Now he's not there in the room, Professor Vogt. I have a really big hope, and I am one of those people who was working alongside him in 1994 to work on this guidelines. But when we talk about future, I would like to really discuss also if somebody wants me to discuss, but I think it's like that's the topic for the next generation, for the future. We are talking about the future. This is not our topic anymore. We need to discuss it in a dialogue form with more people. And also now we come back to this regional importance. I want to engage into a moderated, a hosted dialogue with people who are part of this municipalities and the parliaments. So this is how democracy works. There must be a hard discussion. And we, as cultural workers, cannot only give this task to the politics, the local politics, but we have to also be part of this process. I know a lot of cultural institutions or people working in cultural institutions who not really know the politicians or the groups who work on these topics. And I think this is really hard to say no to those people if I know them. So it's really important to work with those people. Yeah, and now I see Julia from Rabrika. She's also like agreeing with me, I think. And yeah, now we know that we have in Görlitz, we have a parliament who says, yes, we do want these institutions and we support this. And that's what I wish for a cultural plan for the future where we all stand behind it, where we discuss and then we come back to regional meaning. Now I would like to ask Dr. Jacobs. She's working in the free cultural area and she is also can get funding from the project fund. She's working in Leipzig and around Leipzig, then she's also connected to the Sorbian culture. What is your wish for the reform of the guidelines? This is kind of a difficult question and very complex also, because I'm working in the free cultural world. So one big topic is the guidelines for funding per hour, and they are not enough because we always try to explain that artists should earn more per hour, and we try to communicate that with the different institutions who are doing a very different work than we are doing. And of course, it happens that there are a lot of voluntary work is done. Also, a lot of artists have to pay beforehand when they start working, and then they don't even know if they will get the refunding. So I can say that the guidelines of Kulturraum is not a real big topic with the people I'm working with artists, contemporary artists, dancers. So but I can say that the work which had to be done beforehand, before getting the funding, is so much for them, like administratively wise, that they don't want to do it. They say it's like too much time I have to use. And I'm also counting to the 39% of volunteers, because all the applications I write for funding for the Kulturräume I do in my free time. So for me, it's very important to have this culture, and that's why I do it. So this is very important for me, that these free working artists, Sorbs especially, can live here as artists in this region. And I think we need a lot of more communication, and I know that the artists cannot do it on their own. They need some kind of support. Yeah, and of course we know that the phase of the corona pandemic was horrible for artists. A lot of them changed their work, like went into institutions, do not work as free artists anymore. So I hope that we can do more for them and to support them. And for the guidelines, I would hope that there will be a possibility that people can cooperate with the institutions more easily. And as I said, you have to have a lot of time to communicate, to do the applications, and the artists do not have those time to write 2 years an application and then maybe know that maybe 20% chance to get the funding. So thank you very much, Dr. Jacobs, for your statement. Now I would like to, for Mr. Sodann, he now has gotten a lot of topics from us as well. And there are a lot of ideas for the government of Saxony. How did you hear the speech of Mr. Vogt? How do you agree or do you disagree? Well, I think I have to start differently, because I was invited as this work group for media and tourism. And if I would speak like from this group, I would say everything's fine. We do our work, and we get applications, and we can agree to those applications with talking to a lot of experts and institutions we have in the government, which can also like give their opinions. So that's possible for us. But of course, it depends on what we get in this working decisional group. So now I will talk like an opposition politician from the opposition, from the party of Die Linke, the left. So working in the Saxon parliament, we also tried to bring a lot of topics to be discussed. We tried to support the law, the guidelines of the cultural area, because we wanted to enlarge it and to change it. But as always, it's all denied. Sadly, we cannot get through. Professor Dr. Ford said one very important thing: the statistics we do not have. And also we try to get this information in Parliament. What are the statistics for the project, for the project called Cultural Dialogue, and which was about the future of culture. So 460,000 euro was spent in 4 years. And we knew that the ministry had all these numbers, and we talked about it. but then they decided to check it all again and then tell all the communal parts who wanted to realize the project how to do it. So this was a really strange process. And also we talked about the financing of artists and the level, how much should they earn. And of course we have some anxiety about like what will happen in September with the election. And I also asked about this, what does the cultural areas need? Where are the statistics? And then the Saxon government says, we don't have those statistics. Why didn't they realize with their own projects, Zukunft durch K, to get the statistics? I don't really understand. So your statistic also, the expenses for education and culture, those were only those expenses. We could see that the part the Saxon state paid was less and less. But it's even more crucial when you look at like what we spend in Saxony, and we spend a lot more and more every year. But for culture, we spend less and less. So maybe, I don't know the exact numbers, the new numbers I will get next week, but last numbers are that in 2010, we had 2.4% from the whole finances of the Saxon state, from the budget. So, and now we have less percent. So this, it sounds like it's not a big difference, but these are millions of euros, which are very important. Of course, the cultural areas guidelines should be supported and should be enabled to do their task. So this would be a really big step forward, but sadly it did not happen. So there are so many things. So maybe you can come to some kind of end, and then we have another round. Okay, I say that's it for now. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the last word will have the Mayor Benedikt Hummel, Mayor of Culture. But we have time for another round, a last round. And Mr. Sodann was talking about the Saxon government and the Ministry of Culture. And also you were talking about finances, about budgets for artists. So Mr. Franke, the minister responsible, was supposed to be here, and I forgot to tell you that sadly he got ill and that's why he couldn't come, but he would like to express his greetings, and maybe he was listening in the online streaming, so we would like to wish him get well soon. So maybe the last round with short statements. Professor Vogt, in his speech, he underlined the trust and hope that they should be the measuring line. And he explained how difficult it was in 1994 and now in 2024. So he said also that in comparison, in 1994, to implement these guidelines was kind of easy when you compare it to now. So now, Mr. Sodann, I would like to start with you in this last round. And we have this huge area of culture, the financing of theaters. And of course, it's also a big topic for the city of Görlitz. And also for the evaluation of the cultural guidelines, we also need to evaluate the special role of theaters, and or is there a possibility for a parallel guideline to fund theaters? Maybe you can say something about that. I think the microphone doesn't like me. So I think that this cultural pact, this bypass funding, which is happening right now, is not what I think is solidarity. So it doesn't work. So for 7 years, I'm saying now that the government should necessarily talk to all the cultural institutions and people working in culture, and to ask them, and we have to ask ourselves, what are our goals? What do we want to do in this country? So in the Free State of Saxony. So we need to have a basis like theaters, orchestras, and cultural centers. And this foundation must be financed completely. We cannot fund less. So of course we need to pay them according to German rules, according to tariffs. So nothing really grows automatically, and this is like a huge problem. I have this one example. When we look at the Staatsschauspiel Dresden and Semperoper Dresden, they always grow. There's no discussion at all. With the Kulturraum, it's always the status quo. So this is not, we cannot hold this up because it's not a status quo, because when we have inflation, it's the shrinking. So we're saving money. So this means that both state theaters get more money than all the other institutions combined. So I don't want this, that like culture is fighting against like governmental culture in the big cities. So we have to talk about the point that in the rural areas we are always like in a worse situation than the cities. And of course, I wish for our cultural institutions, for the theaters and orchestras, they should have a voice, a stronger voice. But I also want that the people who are recipients of culture, who take part in culture, that they become louder. And this is so important because culture is free. Everything is possible. We can do everything in culture. And this is a huge, huge thing that we can like also comprise young generations to be part of this and create some discussional areas where you don't have to watch what you're saying, but you can say anything and everything. And so you can start to trust in democratic processes again. And that's my wish for our Free State of Saxony, but also for the cultural guidelines, that we will have this a huge evaluation, which will really change things for us. And maybe this was the first part was the implementation of the law, and now it's time to improve it. Now we have a like a not a good state, but that's why we have to improve. Thank you so much. Mrs. Tinkham, now it's your turn with your hope and wish for the evaluation and continuation of the cultural guidelines with a perspective on the younger generation. Now, maybe I just want to add that Professor Vogt had this example of this student who wanted to invite the singer Björk for 1 week into our region. So there are, of course, other possibilities who should fund this? Maybe that's a kind of inspiration for you then. How can we get more funding to young people? So when we look at the variety of the things we fund, and of course it's very interesting, maybe you don't know that there are these different cultural areas, they have different pillars and topics they fund. So sometimes there are some changes and we cannot really compare. And like in general, we have this cultural education, and this is like especially made for younger people. And but I just wanted to say that that's what I was talking about, this different pillars, that we all should like do projects with young people, and this should be a main goal to invite them in and also work with them to create some formats with them. And also to create something, to realize formats which were created by those younger people, and of course to help them to get some networking done and tell them we are going to help you to realize your project idea. And I know that some people don't really like this social culture, Soziokultur, where we mostly work with young people, but also it's not only this filler, it's like museums also who can work with young people, and also music, classical music. And this culture, this part of culture. And a lot of times I think that like we now realized that the cities are kind of don't work anymore, and we tried to support with money to get like more funding to the big theaters. And then there was this kind of attitude from the big cities to help like the confused people in the rural areas. And then experts from this higher culture come to the rural areas and come for 1 or 2 years and activate an experiment with the region and have great successes. And then the program is finished, and then they go back to their big cities and use their great infrastructure and can put this really nice points into their CVs. And yeah, and what is with the rural area? They just stay where they are. And the young people who took part in this, and I totally agree with this because I'm a mother of 2 adult mothers. One is gone, and the other one maybe will come back, but they just went away from this rural region because they're disappointed, because they got some hope from this project, but then they leave and they're disappointed, and so we lose those people forever. So I think we need to like think differently, so young people could see that they have a future in this project, which will last for a longer time. Mrs. Sedlinets, reminded us how it worked in the 90s when you were here in Görlitz, and suddenly you saw this two-language signs, and when she realized there is this minority language of Sorbian language. And this is like a singularity of our region, that we have the Sorbian minority in this region. But of course, it goes beyond the borders of Saxony, it goes to Brandenburg. But it's also a topic which is maybe not the most likable in our region. Maybe you can add something about the Sorbian culture and its funding in comparison city and rural area. So my answer will be short. I think the rural and urban structures, they fit really well artistically, and they have to fit because otherwise it won't work. So I think the most important thing in the Sorbian culture is the compatibility of funding structure. And everybody always says, yeah, you have your own foundation, and that's why you don't get funding from us. And also the cultural foundation of the Free State of Saxony sometimes does that. But of course, we hope to be part of it in the future, and we will try again and again, because we want to work in connection with the future. And we now have a jubilee of 30 years of this cultural guidelines, but there will be the next 30 years. So we have to think about how about its longevity, and can we involve different kind of people easily. And of course there are topics of like administration and stuff, and a lot of people are afraid of this because it's too much. And one huge point is solidarity. So the solidarity between this higher upper culture and between those who work as freelancers. So of course I also don't like this that you have this this topic, this filler, and a lot of freelancers don't work like this. They like do things with they mix the different arts, so it's kind of, they don't even fit into the funding guidelines. So I hope we will be able to develop this future with young people as well. So I would like to have the Mayor Zenker the last word in this round, and then he will give the word directly to the Mayor of Culture in Görlitz, Mr. Hummel. I would like to ask you, what is the meaning of culture in your work as a communal administrator? We are different people here. We're like people from science, culture, and we know that culture is like the most important topic for us all. But what kind of place does culture have in your work, in this administrative work with the city commission? So in comparison to you, I have also the title of cultural mayor, but it's more like an insult, an official insult. So I applied with the city of Zittau as European capital of culture, and it had a huge impact. And there were a lot happened. So I always look for a new topic where we can work with this again. Like, for example, Wrocław was doing the different kind of competition, so it really developed. So, but there's more, not only culture, but I said I was talking about finances, and I don't know if you look at the finances, if you are interested in it, how it will look in the future in the communal rural areas. And if we talk about these numbers, it's kind of in the air, but it's not. I want to say an example. Zittau had a budget of 45 million, and now we have 86 million, and I still don't have any money. So because everything is more expensive, like for example for the administration of schools or children's kindergartens and stuff, so it all the costs grew. So also talking about culture and sustainable culture, it's a huge task for us politicians in this rural area. And also when we talk with Görlitz, it's really tough talks between us. And we will have to talk about the future of our Gerhard Hauptmann Theater, which is in Zittau and in Görlitz. I think it's a very dangerous situation when you all the time want something from the outside, which is not really achievable. And that's what populists do, that they always say that it didn't happen again, nothing is happening for us. So these expectations can be disappointed really easily. So we don't live in the GDR times anymore. And like in the GDR times, there was free stuff in sports and stuff, what people sometimes want from culture now, that they sometimes don't understand that it's not possible, that we cannot do it like this anymore. So it kind of fits to what we've heard already. We need projects who will work in different topics. For example, the theater works with some kind of collectors and with people who have kind of weird hobbies, and we already did that with people from the community who did projects, and they're very sustainable because they maybe go for the whole year with the population. And Sven Weise may know it from the music school in Zittau. We had a very special person in Zittau, in the history of Zittau, which was looked at through different perspectives, through different cultural media, so to speak. So this was really, it's more sustainable. That's what I think would, if I would decide. So this is my wish for the Kulturraum.